Good day, students. Welcome to lesson 5, which is the last lesson for the prelim examination. So this lesson is all about the self in Western and Oriental or Eastern thoughts. So the last discussion, we tackled the different perspectives coming from the different philosophers about the self. Now we try to look at the different perspectives among the Western and Eastern thoughts. Okay, so what are the thoughts of the Western people regarding on understanding the self? So the Western people, they define the self by conducting scientific investigations in the effort to understand the self and have developed theories and difference among them. So meaning to say, they conduct or they undergo scientific methods or studies or observations and analysis regarding on the theory about self, and then they emphasize the importance of scientific methods of investigations to provide satisfactory answers to understanding the self, and then they emphasize the individualistic rather than relational. So they are more on the individual view of the self rather than the relational or the relationship of the self to his society, to his community, to the world, to the universe, or to the cosmos. Okay? And on the other hand, the Eastern thoughts, they define the self by raising questions about the ultimate meaning of human life. So, meaning to say, they are more on the reasons why the self do exist, what is the purpose of the self here on earth, and what is the reason why the self is existing. So they develop theories of self as they have investigated what it means to be a human being. So what is the purpose of the self? So the Eastern thoughts aim to transform self in his consciousness, emotions, feelings, one's relationship to other people and the world. Moreover, the Eastern thoughts emphasize the relational rather than the individual or the individualistic. So the self is considered not in isolation but in relation to others, to the society and the universe. So meaning to say, the self does not exist because of his individual identity, but the self exists because of its relation to the others. So the self or the Eastern theories are highly practical. Okay. Another thing is that Eastern thoughts, they offer a variety of techniques for cultivating a deeper understanding of the self. So along the way, we will discuss what are those techniques that cultivate the self. And then they do not utilize the scientific techniques of investigation. So we have here the different thoughts of the Eastern people. So the first one is the Buddhism, then it followed with the Hinduism, then the third one is Confucianism, and the fourth one or the last one is the Taoism. So the first one is Buddhism. So Buddhism comes from the root word Bud, meaning awake. So meaning to say, the self needs to be awake in order for him to see the possibilities or the positive things happen in life. So that is the meaning of the Bud. And then Siddhartha Gautama is known as Buddha, is the founder of Buddhism. So according to Buddhism practices, the self now has the seed of enlightenment. So meaning to say, the self has the capacity to become a Buddha but he needs to nurture that seed of enlightenment in herself. So there are 5 parts that compose the individual or the self. The first one is the matter, so it refers to the forms or the 6 senses. And then the sensation is refers to the feelings, which is the pleasant, unpleasant, and the natural. And then the perception, it refers to the experiences of the self. So what are the perceptions regarding on his experiences? And then the fourth one is the mental construct. So these are the response according to the conditions or according to the situations that he has in. And the next is the consciousness. So these are the byproducts of the senses or the feelings of the self. So according to Buddhism, there is no self or no soul. So, diba, last discussions that we have, we talk about a certain philosopher that has the same perceptions with this. So there is no self, and then there is only nothing, and all else is an illusion. So there is nothing permanently. So the life or the self does not exist permanently, but there is a change. There is a constant change within the self. So the Buddhism believe in anicca. So anicca means it is impermanent. So there is no permanent within the self. And then it means that everything in life is always changing. So changing is constant, as I've said a while ago. And then that nothing lasts forever. So walay forever, but there is a change. Okay? So according to Buddhism, the ideal self is to experience nirvana. So nirvana, it is a state of transcending void of self-reference. So meaning to say, the self needs to go beyond his limits in order for him to experience nirvana. And this nirvana can be achieved through meditation. So the second one is Hinduism. So Hinduism, it is the religion of an ancient people known as the Aryans. And then the Hinduism is the third most largest religion in the world. So the first one is the Catholics, and then the second one is Islam. So this is the third one, Hinduism. So I think there is 1.75 billion people who are in this religion. And then they believe that the goal of man is to have knowledge of the true reality. So that is according to Brahman. So Hinduism believes the law of karma. So the law of karma is the most important doctrine of Hinduism. It is the law of the cause and effect by which each individual creates his own destiny by his thoughts, words, and deeds. And then everything you do in your past will eventually come back to bite you. So what goes around comes around. So that is the law of karma. So when we choose actions that bring happiness and success to others, then the fruit of our karma is happiness and success. So the Hindus believe that Atman, being an immortal soul, continues to be reincarnated from lifetime to lifetime until it is freed from the cycle of rebirth and reach a state of nirvana or non-birth. So meaning to say, the Hindus believe their doctrine that a person may be reborn or reincarnate successively into different classes of living beings, like to be rebirth into God, human, or animal, or it could be hungry ghost, or in denizen of hell. So it depends on the person's actions. So kung asa siya mapadulong. And then once the personal soul or the person's soul will reach beyond his limit, then that's the time that the soul will move on into the state of nirvana or the non-birth. One thing is that karma does not end with a body's death. Its influence may extend through incarnation of the soul. So meaning to say, even though the body died, but then again they believe the power of reincarnation, then that's the reason why the karma is there is an extension of the karma of the self. Third one is Confucianism. So it is a system of thoughts and behavior originating in ancient China. So they believe the golden rule, which is do not do unto others what you would not want others to do to you. So meaning to say, ayaw buhatang usa ka butang nga kung di ka gusto nga isa ka tawo buhaton na siya sa impa. Since then, Confucianism believed that the self-cultivation could be accomplished by knowing one's role in society and act accordingly. So the moral character is perfected through continuously taking every opportunity to improve oneself in thoughts and in actions. So meaning to say, what is the main reason or what is the purpose of the self here on earth? And then because of its purpose, it is one way of shaping its character, one way of shaping the identity or the ability of the person by taking his role in improving herself through the thoughts and actions. So lastly is we have Taoism. So Taoism is a Chinese philosophy attributed to Lao Tzu. So the self is an extension of the cosmos, not of social relationships. So meaning to say, the self has its relationship with the nature, with the world, with the universe, and other living things here on earth. So they describe as the self as one of the limitless forms of the Tao. So the Tao is the commonly regarded as a nature that is foundation of all that exists. So meaning to say, the self exists because of its relationship with the nature. So according to Taoism, the perfect man has no self, and the selfless person leads to a balanced life in harmony with both nature and society. So they practice the yin-yang theory, which is an ancient symbol of harmony that reminds us that life is a balancing act, and most fulfilling when we learn to embrace its dualities, which is the ups and downs, the good times and bad times, and the joy and challenges, because life has two sides. So you need to balance both sides of the self. So we have here the comparison of the perception of the Eastern and Western people about the self. There are models and approaches of understanding the self. So we have the first dimension, which is the term of reference. So the Western thought is that there is a separation between the philosophy and the religion and or spirituality, while the Eastern thoughts believe that there is intertwine between the religion and the philosophy. So both are connected to each other. And then another type of dimension is the example of school of thoughts or belief system. So Western thought believes the scholasticism, nationalism, empiricism, or phenomenology. So there is a certain study or it under the scientific methods before they come up with a theory. And then in the Eastern thoughts, they believe the Hinduism, the Buddhism, the Confucianism, and Taoism. So in this thought, they believe that the self exists because of its relation to the society or the community. So another dimension is we have the source of knowledge. So the Western thought has made use of reasons rather than faith to pursue wisdom. So meaning to say, they practice more on the individualistic view of the self. And then the Eastern thought has trusted intuitions and is often associated with the religious belief. And then we also have another dimension for notable philosophers. So last discussions or last meeting, we tackled different philosophers. So I think there are 11 philosophers that we discussed in the previous discussion we had. And then these are Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, René Descartes, and John Locke. And then from the Eastern thought, we have Siddhartha Gautama, also known as Buddha. Another is we have Confucius, who is founder of the Confucianism. And then we also have Lao Tzu. So we have the modes of cognition. So the Western thoughts practice more on analytic and deductive. So they undergo scientific method before they come up with a theory or laws. And then for the Eastern thought, we have the scientific and inductive. So meaning to say it is more on the relationship of the self between the universe and the society. And then we also another emphasis. So the Western thoughts believe the distinction and opposition, which is the difference of the self among its people. And for the Eastern thought, they practice more on the communalities and harmonies, or the balancing of the self to its relation. And then we also have another dimension, which is the view of the self. So the Western thoughts view self as egocentric because they more on the individual and understanding of the self. And then for the Eastern thought, they view self as sociocentric because they believe on the relational or the relations of the self among its people. And the last dimension is we have the view of the universe and the life. The Western thought believe the linear, so meaning to say there is a birth and a death. So it is a linear form of the self. And then for the Eastern thought, it is the view self or life as the circular because they believe that the power of reincarnation. So the after the death body of the self, after the self die, there is always a reincarnation of the self. Next is we have theological view. So the Western thoughts view self as monotheistic, or meaning to say mono means one, or indi or individual, one or alone, one. And then for the Eastern thoughts is we have polytheistic or pluralistic. So meaning to say the poly is many, okay? And then the self exists because of its relational or relationship among many people, okay? And then for the ideal, the Western thoughts is more on the self-actualization, so through personal growth. So the self exists because of its own growth, okay? And then the view of the Eastern thoughts is to achieve a balanced life and finds one's role in the society. So meaning to say there is an harmony of the self between the nature and the society that he has in. Okay? And then the last one dimension is we have cultural framework. So the Western thoughts viewed self as individualism, while the Eastern thought viewed self as collectivism.